In the summer of 2025, what began as a routine local judicial campaign in Dallas County, Texas, quickly became something far more consequential. The race? Justice of the Peace, Precinct 4, Place 1. Not the kind of contest that typically commands headlines or primetime analysis. But this race would be different. From the outset, voters responded, not just to a candidate or a theme, but to a message that resonated. Protect the process. Courage over complacency. Time to raise the bar. It's a green light. It was a campaign built on standards, on transparency, on the belief that community courts deserved credentials and compassion, and that community trust was derived from integrity and commitment to the rules, even when it was not politically or fiscally expedient. Then, on January 6th, 2026, the campaign ended. Not at the ballot box, not by withdrawal of the candidate, not by voter rejection. The campaign ended through the exercise of political authority in the furtherance of personal relationships, before a single vote was cast. 48 hours later, the official closure was announced. The public statement was measured, the tone professional, the explanation procedural. Behind the scenes, the reality was far more complex. Campaign posters came down and door hangers were boxed up. Volunteers were thanked. The race for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 4, Place 1, was pretty much declared over. But what actually happened? How does a viable campaign disappear overnight? Who decides eligibility? What safeguards exist when political discretion intersects with democratic access? This is not simply a story about one judicial seat. This is about process, about power, and the control of the architecture of local elections. This is what unfolded behind the formal statements and in private phone conversations after the end of the Maxine4JP campaign. This conversation is what it means when a targeted few control your local elections before you ever enter the voting booth. It may have started about one candidate in Dallas County, but it's about all of us and our entire democracy.
Hello, my name is judicial. I am here with attorney Maxine.
Hey,
How are you today?
I'm better than I deserve.
Okay. We're here because we got some questions. Okay, I got questions and I know everyone else has some questions. So before we get into it, I'm gonna give a little backstory. Again, I'm Dr. Julie Shapillo. I'm a wife, a mother. I'm a professional adult on occasion. But most recently, I was your treasurer for your campaign for Maxine4JP. Well, it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go. And I left with more questions than answers. And that's because I really didn't know what Justice of the Peace did. And you kind of schooled me and enlightened me. And can you just kind of talk on that for just a little bit? Because I know there's a lot of people out there like me that really, we don't understand what JP is. We see it and we just vote. Either we know the person or we just don't want to go. We don't know the other person. I'm just Democrat, I'm Republican down the ballot. Can you just kind of speak on what a Justice of the Peace actually does for our communities?
I mean, it runs the gamut. It's, to me, one of the most expansive judicial roles, although it's lower on the judicial hierarchy. So here in Texas, I was running on the Democratic Party Dallas County ticket. JP's, Justices of the Peace, it actually stems from before there was an America. It actually stems from the British system. And so at a time when you had very centralized government, but people were very disparately placed, it made sense to have someone in the community that could resolve disputes, that could that understood the communal dynamic, that understood how things worked in that particular community, understood the people, the parties, etc. That made sense.
Okay, it basically kept it out of the higher courts. It
Right.
kept them from being busy with stuff you really didn't have to be busy with, right?
Exactly. Well, not so much. It wasn't a matter of the importance. It was a matter of the realism. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I mean, listen, if the court that I'm going to go to is, a day's journey, where it's going to take me a whole 3/4 of the day to get there by horse or buggy or whatever, and then I have to wait for my case to be heard. The judge may not really understand the dynamics of, what happens in our community, etc. It's not quite the same, right? It just didn't make any sense. So it definitely made sense to have something that was localized, centralized, specific to understanding the dynamics of that community. Well, the role, of course, has evolved, right?
Right.
Dallas County is definitely not your, backwater town. Right. So we're not talking about, you were supposed to give me 6 bales of hay and I was supposed to milk your cows for 3 days.
Right.
That's incredibly important in an agricultural community and agrarian community. But now we're talking about things that really are grounded in contracts, like your eviction. So justices of the peace handle eviction cases. They have original jurisdiction in Dallas County, of cases surrounding eviction. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a realtor. Keep in mind, you have someone in your home that refuses to leave, depending on how long they've been there. In certain circumstances, that might be a case where you would have to file an eviction order.
You need to know the law. I said what I said. You need to know the law.
So they handle evictions. They handle debt claims. It could be Capital One reviving some old debt, saying, "Hey, you still owe us that $4,500 from whatever, in the last 3 years." It can be a number. It can be a number of things: evictions, debt claims. They sign mental health warrants. There are issues with conservatorship. I mean, they handle all Class C misdemeanors, which may not seem important until that joker shows up on your background check because you were thinking, "Oh, it's just a Class C misdemeanor. There's no jail time," but it's still something that is going to be on your record, and in a community and at a time when decisions are made or not made based on any little criteria. You don't want something like that just kind of waving around. Right. So it's really a position of incredible import and community impact.
Okay. I myself am a Dallas County voter, but I've always been into politics. On the quiet side, where we talk about it in our home, which is something in the African American communities we really don't do. We want the school systems to kind of show us or tell us how the government should work, when we really should kind of invest a little more time. Having learned what I learned from you, I actually became engaged. I mean, I'm knocking on doors. I got petitions. I'm feeling like
she was block walking.
I was out there. Those of you who know me, I was out there. I'm all for community service, but that took a little work and effort. But I believed in the cause. And, with that being said, I'm mad. I mean, and you and I have discussed things and you've grounded me, but I was mad as if I was the one who got rejected. I mean, and I know a lot of other people feel that, well, your sign is still in my yard. Well, it shall stay until voting ends. But I'm mad because everything that we know about the process, I understand, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. But one thing I noticed when we were doing things, that there's not a lot of information out there, at least not in Dallas County. And if it is, it's not readily available. So if anyone knows where this is housed, please drop it in the comments, whatever. But I didn't see it. I didn't see where it says this, that, and the third. Okay. So the reason why I'm mad is because I felt like at every hand, it was something wrong. And by the time you were told it was wrong, or we were told, no, this is not the correct way to do something, we were already in the 12th hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so we still jump through hoops now. I'm going to high five you on that one. Baby, we jumped through some hoops.
We did.
To get a lot of things done, and we passed the test until we did.
Right.
And so that's when the party chair came in. And so you explained a little bit, and I'm still learning, but can you kind of give us a little credence? Can you give us a little basis to the party chair? Because right now I'm mad at him. I don't know if I should be. I really don't know where my anger is kind of displaced right now.
Right.
So can you kind of tell me?
And so, so let's just be clear about what happened, right? Because, I always maintain language is important.
Yes.
And so you have people saying, Maxine was booted off the ballot because she submitted a deficient application. Let's be clear, okay? Maxine, I've also heard people say, or have said to me, well, if you knew that you were new, you should have submitted your application before the deadline. So if there were issues, the party could have told you, because, and this is a direct quote from someone, I'm sure if you had submitted your stuff early, the party would have told you if there was something wrong with it. That is not what happened. Okay.
I'm really over here. I'm mad I don't have my blinkers on, but go ahead, because I want to blink hard.
Breathe in, breathe out. That's not what happened. So let's be really clear about what happened. Just to level set for everyone, in order to appear on the ballot in Dallas and some other major counties, you must, for the JP role, pay a certain amount of money, and you must secure a certain number of signatures of registered voters in your precinct.
Okay.
So what that practically means is you look at the entire scope of, for me, that would be precinct 4, and you have to get either 250 signatures and pay $1,000, or 750 signatures, and then you don't have to pay $1,000. Now, what is supposed to happen is these signatures, you're supposed to submit your signatures to the party, and the party has, for a precinct level role, and the party has 5 days, according to the Texas Election Code, to review your petitions for form, content, and procedure. What does that mean? So you can have a challenge for 2 things. You can have it, 1, for things that are facially evident. So you didn't fill it out correctly, or it's on the wrong form, or, those kind of things that you can see with your eyes. I've reviewed it. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And then you have an opportunity. You're supposed to, according to the election code, immediately respond to this candidate and explain to them what the deficiencies are, and they have the option to cure it, correct it, or not. Okay. And then you can also challenge signatures. So let's say there's a signature on there, and you realize that person is not in precinct 4. That signature should not count. Mm-hmm. Or you realize they just put 1, 2, 3, 4 Beltline. Mm-hmm. No, they have to put their whole address. Or they didn't put their, there's no date. Or they just put jail. They didn't put their whole name. All of those are things, some of those are facial, but signature stuff, you don't expect the party to check, because let's be practical.
Go through all
how do you, if somebody brings in 500 signatures, you're supposed to check every 500, that's unreasonable. So that part is something that another party could check, but you don't expect the party to do that. But facial things, the party is supposed to form, content, and procedure according to the Texas Election Code. They're supposed to review. So in our situation, what we did was we did go in before the deadline because I knew that I was a new political candidate. I did not have a very expensive $25,000 political consultant, which some of my counterparts did. I didn't have that. I literally, as you can see,
grassroots. We were grassroots, and we were stomping the grass hard.
It was the trunk of her car, the trunk of my car, my dining room. That's the campaign headquarters. works, right? And so, I knew we needed to make sure that we were doing everything possible. So I took mine in early, and it was reviewed. It took quite a while. They called the Secretary of State and whatever. Long story short, they came back and they said, hey, some of these signatures, we reviewed your package, and some of these signatures are on the wrong version of the right form. Mm-hmm. The form is right, but it's a different version.
Okay.
And so you can still submit because you have enough signatures, but we won't be able to count the signatures on this form, which represented a total of 39 signatures.
But did you know that you had the wrong form?
No, of course
because
not.
There was nothing that went out again to say you have the wrong form.
Well, no, but I mean that's why you go in early to rectify, to find out if there's an issue, so you can rectify it before the deadline. So that's what I did. So I thought that hey, it's unfortunate, but this is why we went in early so that the party could review and let me know if there were any issues. And so I was pretty confident. After they said those 39 signatures wouldn't count, I said, okay. Well, I'm going to go back. Not only did I go get those 39 signatures back, I got 51 signatures, just to be sure.
Right.
And brought them back. And so, again, they went through my paperwork, notarized every single form. So we didn't just do one form, which is all the election code requires. We notarized every single form so that, it could be reviewed by, we had two different notaries review it at the Dallas County Democratic Party. I had not heard anything back from the party in terms of something from the Secretary of State saying, hey, you're on the ballot. So I inquired of the Dallas Democratic Party, their office director saying, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Their director of operations. And I did that on the day of the ballot choice, where you essentially choose balls to determine where you're going to appear on the ballot. And so she assured me on that day, Maxine, we certified you. You're fine. We submitted you.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember certification day. We were wearing our green.
Yeah. So, we were excited about that. And so she said, you should be getting something from the Secretary of State any day now. 2 more days passed, and I'm an attorney, right? I like having paperwork. I like closing the file, and I could not. I just wasn't feeling comfortable closing the file because I hadn't seen anything that showed that I had been submitted to the Secretary of State. So I inquired again, this time in email, and I got a response back from them saying, yeah, you're fine. You're submitted. As a matter of fact, here's a screenshot showing you're on the Secretary of State's website. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I felt comfortable. Right? I'm on the Secretary of State's website. I know my signatures are good. How do I know? Because I literally went through everyone personally. Yes. I did not delegate that task out to anyone. I said, I'm going to sit in my house and go through every signature and, every name, and make sure that my count of, qualifying signatures, because you get more signatures than you need. And then you find out.
Because I had plenty. I had over 30 signatures, and she called and said, Doc,
nope, sorry.
Out of those 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right.
Out of my 50 signatures made.
Yeah.
So I can attest you went through them.
We're not going to use those, Doc. Sorry, can't use them. And then, so as we talked about, Doc, I have to literally go talk to these people myself.
Yes.
And, she and I had some, we're going to say, fervent fellowship. And she was like, well, I can just get it. No, I'm going to go myself and talk to them and explain why I'm running for office. Because I wanted to make sure I earned every vote. I wanted people to understand how passionate I was about this seat, and how important I felt it was for our community. And so, she was in her feelings a little bit, but we resolved that. And so, so we got all of this done. I'm campaigning, strategizing, and we get to the Christmas season. So
We got events planned.
We got events planned. We got,
campaign rallies. We're ready to get it all.
Block walking. We're putting signs out because I purposely did not put out a single yard sign until I got confirmation that we were certified. We were on the ballot. And at 6:30, the night before Christmas Eve, I get an email from the party chair, Dallas County Democratic Party chair, saying that that 46 pages of my petitions, I'd only submitted 51. So 46 pages were incomplete because I had not completed my name, my party designation, the office I was seeking, including the appropriate precincts in place. That's what it said.
But you're certified with these same pages.
Which is why it didn't make sense to me. And so, but the email also instructed that if I wanted to appeal this, if I wanted to respond to this, I would have to do so in 24 hours. And only if I responded in those 24 hours would my appeal be considered. And I was shocked. First of all, this thing was sent at 6:30.
The day before Christmas Eve.
The night before Christmas Eve. It was pitch black outside. It was literally because I was joning back and forth with my husband that I happened to see it. Because he was saying, this girl gonna be over there chopping celery, talking about she's making stuffing on Christmas Day, but she really gonna be checking emails. And I was like, that's not true. I'm gonna turn my work emails off. So I literally was going to turn my work emails off, not my campaign emails, but my work emails, and that's how I got the email address. So they didn't even care enough to send it to the right. They didn't even send it to the right email address. Sent it to the wrong email address at 6:30 and gave me 24 hours to respond.
And this is the party chair. I don't mean to interrupt. Yeah. I'm trying to understand. So the party chair. So we got certified with the state.
Right. So what happens is you submit. The party is supposed to review, and if it passes the review of form, content, and procedure, it's supposed to go to the Secretary of State, who is the election authority for our state.
Which we did.
Right.
And that's where we got certified.
Right.
But now enters the party chair.
So the party chair, the party chair instructs that it was a post-challenge determination. And imagine my surprise,
right?
When I'm like, "What post-challenge determination? What challenge?"
Yeah,
I didn't know I was challenged. Well, the Texas Election Code, as I was unceremoniously informed, doesn't require them to inform you when someone challenges your petition. So you're sitting there, making plans and campaigning, and you don't know that your petitions have been challenged. So I found out I had been challenged when the determination was made that the challenge had been accepted. And so just think about that. Think about you finding out you were charged with a crime when you get the judgment that you're
going to jail, basically.
Right.
I mean,
but that's what the election code requires. That's the floor. Now, can someone decide, okay, that's the floor. It doesn't require me to do this, but there's nothing that precludes me, that stops me from doing this. Right. And in the interest of decency, I'm going to do this. I'm going to let someone know, hey, there's been a challenge. So they're at least aware, and it's not a shock to them that a challenge is going to possibly move them off the ballot. So that didn't happen. And so I responded to this email and said, hey, listen, it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. It's already 6:30 at night. No one's in their office.
At all.
I'm starting to call people. Of course, most people are not answering their phone. And the ones that do are like, what? I can't hear you. I'm at my grandma's house.
Right. In the country, what do you need?
Right. Or I'm at the airport. I'm getting on a plane. Right. To go see
because
my
everybody's celebrating. Everybody's up.
It's the night before Christmas Eve. People are traveling. They've cut their phone off. I called one person. I just kept calling her. And she finally answered. Well, she answered. She's like, hello. And I was like, hey. And I'm looking at her like it's 8 o'clock or something. Well, I had woken her up because she was out of the country. Because
she wasn't even on that time. So she was out celebrating.
She was like, it's 4 in the morning here, girl. What is going on? And so I responded and said to the party chair, hey, come on, just give me one business day.
Right.
So, because yes, I'm an attorney, but I don't practice election law.
Right.
And so I wanted to have a conversation with someone who practiced election law.
Mm-hmm. Doing your due diligence, as you always do.
I mean, that's just responsible, right? Just because someone's a doctor doesn't mean that you expect that doctor.
Now, you were talking about your experience as an attorney.
Right. And so it just made sense for me to try to talk to someone who had experience in election law. And I wanted to talk to the authoritative body,
right?
Which would be the Secretary of State's office, which was closed
for the holiday,
Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day, the day after.
It wasn't closed.
So I said, hey, can you give me one business day, right? Give me that Monday so I can talk to people, and I respond to you Tuesday. Crickets. So
because you were required to respond within 24 hours, but not they didn't have to acknowledge you until they felt like it.
Exactly. And so that's what the election code. There's nothing in the election code that requires you to act with any kind of decency or decorum to administer this process with any semblance of humanity or professional courtesy. It's just not required by the code. We must require it of each other and of our leaders. But I digress. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to err on the side of complying. And so I did the best that I could, thank God, for the women who on Christmas Eve talked me through it and encouraged me and, said, Maxine, you can get this. We're looking up, code and case law. And I responded with, what I thought to be a pretty well thought out appeal letter, basically explaining, I'm reviewing my copy of the documents. 46 pages are not an issue. I don't see any documents in which I don't see any 46 documents where my name is missing, the office being sought is missing. That doesn't. Apply. So the math wasn't mathing at that point. The math wasn't mathing, and so at this point, I still was thinking, "Oh, he must have gotten my, stuff mixed up with someone else's." And once I send this appeal, he's going to look back and he's going to realize, "Oh no, 46 pages weren't an issue."
But that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. So I submitted my response. I think he gave me 24 hours to respond. I think I submitted it in 23 hours and 20 minutes or something. So a little after 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So, that's what I was doing Christmas Eve.
Not making your pumpkin pie, pumpkin bread.
No, we didn't get that this year. But, hey, I signed up for an election. So, hey. So I submitted my appeal, and I really honestly expected that I would get a response fairly soon. When I say fairly soon, hey, if I was required to respond on Christmas Eve, okay, maybe you didn't respond on Christmas. Maybe you took Christmas off. But I definitely was thinking the day after Christmas, you would respond. I got nothing. That Monday, I called the Secretary of State, and they were working pretty much on a skeleton crew. I even, had a conversation with someone who humorously but honestly said, ma'am, like, we're here, but
we're not here. We're over here with the eggnog and the cookies and passing out the.
We showed up so we wouldn't get fined. Okay. So, because when I kept calling on Monday and was getting voicemail. So I sent an email. It may have been a tad detailed.
But
so when I finally got someone on the phone, he said, "No, we see your email. we see all of your email.
We got it.
It's here, and it's been assigned to an attorney, and we're gonna get to it, but." But there's a lot in here to get to because I needed to understand,
They had to unpack all of that.
Right. And so for me, I needed to understand can this decision just be made unilaterally? Where and what's my recourse?
Because it seemed out the blue, like literally, this was a whole new meaning to being blindsided, if you will. Mm-hmm. And me, I'm a lay person. You're having to explain this to me, so I can only imagine what people in your district, because you're my judge. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not understanding, I know they're not understanding, but where I'm sitting, this is why we don't get into politics. See, because this crap right here, I'm ready to choke somebody. I mean, you reel me in and pray over me. I'm good. I got a little spirit feel right now. But I mean, when you see all of your hard work, mm-hmm. I see the work that you put in, the tireless days and nights, body. You're out here stumping in the street, so at least I can do is walk my block. Mm-hmm. Is what I'm thinking. And then to be told you're missing X, Y, and Z when I just told I cleared that hurdle. It's almost like you're running track and you run all 4 laps in the 4x100, and then they come back and say, "Oh, we were just playing. That wasn't the real gun. You couldn't have stopped me before I made that first lap and I almost died." Nobody said anything to me until I come across that first one. That fourth one, I'm ready to take my teeth out. Because I'm tired. I done run this race.
Right. And so, listen, I don't want to make it seem like I don't think it's important for candidates to do their work. Right? Candidates need, if we want to be in leadership positions, it's incumbent upon us to do the work. Right. To access available information. So, for example, the Secretary of State has a kind of PowerPoint on, so you're running for office, mm-hmm. things to expect. Baby, that was like right next to my Bible for a while. Like I was combing that. And all of the things they tell you to be mindful of, make sure you don't do this, make sure you don't do that. The issue for me that they eventually used for me wasn't on that PowerPoint. And so just to be clear, what the issue was, it wasn't 46 pages. I found out literally when we went to court, because one of the things I asked for was, just send me what you're saying is an issue. Mm-hmm. So I can at least see, okay, well, this is what I did wrong. They never did. Repeatedly, I asked. I asked for it in my appeal. I called and asked for it. I spoke to the operations manager of the Dallas County Democratic Party, who said, I'm going to go call the party chair right now. Mm-hmm. And came back and said to me, oh yeah, he's going to respond to you today. He never did. I spoke to the party chair myself before we went to court, and that's eventually why I had to take it to the court system, mm-hmm. because I thought, hey, listen, we're all in the same party. We're all working together. And amicable about something. Right. Let's just have a conversation. Just explain to me what I did wrong.
Because you would think.
So I would be able to understand what the issue was, and I can explain it to others as well. Right. Because people invested their time, their money, their energy. I need to understand.
Our hearts were in this.
Right. And that for me is a real huge part of this. Because the professional courtesy, the human decency, mm-hmm. the dignity that you afford another human being and another professional was not afforded to me.
At all.
Just the dignity of a response, of a, hey, I got your appeal, my answer's still no, here's what you did wrong, and I think this is fatal. And so the fatal issue in his determination was, and I talked about this in my previous video, I'll leave it in the comments, my campaign closure video. When you get the form, you print it out. It's on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And so I started that way. But a lot of people were saying, Maxine, this is too small. Yeah. So I made it bigger.
So you went to Kinko's and
There's no more Kinko's.
Well, what is it? FedEx? Well, it used to be FedEx. Kinko. It's
FedEx office, right? So I go and I make it bigger.
Yeah, she does.
And I put it on 11 by 17 paper. But when I did that, I put, in the office being sought, I put justice of the peace, but I didn't put the precinct number.
Oh, okay.
Afterwards.
Minute.
It's
big, but it's minute. Something
right. And so should I have put the precinct number? Listen, I accept that. I should have caught that. My challenge and my frustration is, what am I handing it? Because that is definitely a form, content, and procedure issue. So if I bring it to you,
it should have been caught earlier,
and you didn't catch it,
why are you faulting me for it? Because you didn't do your job.
So that was the ultimate. That was ultimately what the issue was. But that came about because of a challenge by my opponent. It wasn't the party that determined initially, hey, there's a deficiency in your application. It was, I submitted it. Once you submit it according to the election code, your petitions become public. My opponent requested those ballots and made a challenge alleging, all kinds of stuff, but essentially asserting that because I did not include that 4-1, that 4 after Justice of the Peace, that was fatal, that those ballots should be excluded. He took that, that was given to the party, and the Democratic Party chair determined that yes, in fact, in his determination, that was fatal to those ballots. Now,
even though it was certified, because I'm trying to understand the power of the party chair. Mm-hmm. Because in my mind, if the state has certified me to be on this ballot, I get that. I'm all for form, but like you said, content, procedure, all of that should have been caught. And not only did they have time to catch it, it wasn't like they returned this certification to you within 1 or 2 days. It was almost a week because you had to continually ask amendment too.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, this is kind of a two-parter for me. And I know you've talked me off the ledge on this because you've taken the high road. And again, I don't know if we switched bodies. I'm not sure how it happened now because I really felt like the candidate doing all this. But one, I understand the party chair has their procedure, okay? Their Robert's Rules of Order, if you will. But my problem...
Texas election code.
Okay, well...
In theory.
Oh, yeah. So my problem with this, okay, you're certified. They should be unbiased in anything that they do. Should, being the operative word, unbiased. And 2, given that this had already gone through the process, you had done it early, it should have been caught and was not. I feel like this should have been one of those extenuating circumstances where, okay, yes, moving forward, this should be XYZ. We're going to do a one-time whatever. That's my opinion as a voter. That's my opinion as fairness.
And you are not alone. You are not alone.
Because it's not passing the smell test for me, attorney. I feel like that you were challenged, and I could be wrong. But everything that I've seen with my little bit into politics, just in Dallas County, I see what goes on in her offices, but I digress. But just in Dallas County alone, a lot of stuff is not passing the smell test. And I understand dirty politics goes all around, but good God. And I say that with all the respect to our Lord and Savior as I have for him. It's just something is not right in that, and I don't feel like the dominoes fell as they were stacked. What do you say to that? Because I know you've talked me off the ledge several times, and I'm gonna stay off the ledge, but I got questions.
Yeah,
I'm gonna choke folk out, but I ain't.
No, we're not doing that. That's not what we do.
That's I'm about to be on the money team.
That's not where we come from. That's not what we do.
See,
but listen,
always reeling me back.
Listen, you are not the only one who, and that's why this conversation was supposed to happen weeks ago, where you were on 12, ready to have this conversation.
You wouldn't got word in. And I'd be like,
And, I was not ready to have the conversation. And there was a couple of reasons. First of all, I need to be honest. I had to spend time and just sit down and have a conversation with the Lord myself. Because I ran, not because, as I said, I'm a political novice. I did not jump into this kind of saying, hey, today I'm going to run for, that was not on, my 2025 bingo ticket. I really honestly feel and still do believe that God told me to run. And so I needed to spend time with God and say, wait a minute. God, if you told me to run, if you told me to do this, right, you left out some things. Why is this happening?
Now, when you were asking God, was this what He wanted you to do? Did He answer you? I just want to know, because sometimes when I have those conversations, I'm like,
my question was more, and I needed to do this, right? I needed to have that conversation because it was important for me to heal.
Right.
Because you invest so much of your soul, so much of your energy, so much of yourself. Being a new political candidate, I wasn't, I didn't have a team to go represent me. Right. I literally was going to people's houses and introducing myself and sitting at their kitchen table or in their front yard. Right. And, I made friends with people who literally was like, let me bring you some lemonade. You look like you're hot out here walking. And brought me lemonade or, brought me some frozen watermelon, which I'd never had before. Frozen watermelon dipped in lemonade, and I was like,
you're in the South, for real.
Listen, I was meeting some good folk. And so, you gave so much of yourself, and I was like, okay, God, if this is what you told me to do, why is this happening?
Right.
How could this be happening if you told me to do this? And so I needed to have those conversations because I needed to heal. Mm-hmm. Because the danger in not doing that is if you do not heal,
right,
you end up bleeding on people that didn't cut you.
Exactly.
You end up bleeding and speaking out of anger.
Hurt people.
Exactly. And I didn't want to be that person.
Right.
And so, there were definitely people who were saying, girl, the time is ticking and you got to strike while the iron is hot and, you got to do this and while people are still engaged. And I'm like, I'm not going to talk until God has done what God is doing me. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to have that conversation.
Right.
And I'm not speaking from a hurt, broken place.
Right.
Right. And so that was the first issue.
Because I was boxing everybody. I didn't have to. Listen, everybody was come to fighting.
And then the other part of it was what made me say, okay, let's go ahead and have this conversation. When I released my campaign close video, you weren't the only one. There were people that called me and said, okay, that was a nice little video. Mm-hmm. Thank you but what's the real reason? Is your husband okay? Are y'all good? Right. Is your health okay? Because they could not fathom that the reason that I was not on the ballot was because there wasn't a 4 after Justice of the Peace. Especially because, and here was one of the issues that I had and that I asserted, especially because at the bottom of that sheet, you are taking an oath, right? With your notary statement that you have spoken to people, that you've explained to them and read to them what's at the top of the document.
Yeah.
Explain to them what the role is. And so I couldn't understand if the process requires both the completion of the document, the signatures, as well as this oath, mm-hmm. Why was it when it was under review, you weren't taking into account the oath, but you were only taking into account what you written on the paper?
Right.
And so there were a number of people who kept saying to me, and I don't mean one or two, I'm literally talking about a number of people who called and said, called or texted and said, I need to know the real reason. Mm-hmm. I need to understand why you're not on the ballot because it cannot be over a 4. It can't be over no 4-1. That can't be the reason.
Yeah. Well, I even asked you, I said, so what do we do now? You said there is no now. I was like, no, for real. And you were like, there is no now. And my mouth, flabbergasted is not the word.
Well, that was after we had appealed. That was after we had sent the letters. That was after we had called. That was after we had gone to the Democratic Party to do endorsement screenings and were told then you were on the ballot. And this is at the same time that the Secretary of State's office, mm-hmm. Election office is telling me, Well, as far as we're concerned, you're still on the ballot. Because when we look you up, you're on the ballot, but the ultimate authority for a precinct seat goes to your Democratic your Dallas County Democratic Party. And likewise, I asked them, hey, if this is the issue, because I was trying to figure out what the issue could be. I even asked, hey, at one point in my campaign, we were only using green ink because of my campaign colors. Could that be a reason they excluded me? And when I did ask the precinct question, and they said, ideally, you should include the precinct. Mm-hmm. But if we were asked, here was the response, and I have it in writing. If we were asked, the Secretary of State's office said, we would assert that should not be a reason to exclude a candidate.
But they don't have the final authority.
But the final authority rests with the Dallas County Democratic Party.
Which, again, begs the question, how much power does this person give? And do we get them out? Are they elected into this position, or are they hired into it? How do they even get this role? And I'm asking because now that y'all done pulled me into these politics, and I'm politicking here, I have questions, people. Because, again, you're the level-headed one. I'm not. I didn't run. I can do what I want to do. Within reason. I got my attorney next to me. But I feel like I'm asking for everyone else. So I'm going to ask the questions. Maybe some people are too prissy, too polite. I'm not that. I'm none of that. What can be done? Because we need to learn this, because this is affecting all of us on so many levels.
You're not the only person. We went to court. We went to court to I filed a TRO, a temporary restraining order, essentially seeking injunctive relief so that they wouldn't remove me from the ballot. Because again, until I was in court, they still had not given me any specificity. It was literally in court that they, on the record, started saying, well, he may have typed 46, but what he meant was 23 because he misread the papers. And it was ridiculous.
But it sounded like he got more leniency than you did. Am I lying? People, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
But here's the thing. Because you asked, is this about him? And there are people who are like you, upset. They want to make this about the party chair. And although I personally don't think the party chair handled this in the way that is ideal for us to move forward as a party.
Fairness. There's no fairness.
But this is not about him as an individual.
Okay.
It's not about him as an individual. To answer your question, how do you get in that role? It's an elected position. Right? And we're going into voting, or depending on when you see this, we're already in voting. It's and he is running unopposed again. Okay? So this is not about, here's the thing. It's not about an individual. And the reason I say it's not about an individual is the same reason I say it's not about an individual when we talk about who's in the Oval. Right? You cannot make certain moves, create certain cultures, allow certain things to be normative if you don't have an entire system that supports this. So that was another one of the things that I had to sit down and get grounded with, because this felt very personal, particularly because before I ran, I went to this person, the county party chair, and he told me, one, we have an incumbent and we support our incumbent, so,
So that basically kind of set the scene for you there. Like, do what you do, but we're over here.
Right. So, it was made. Again, that was shocking to me.
Yeah,
because here's what I'm thinking. When I run, let's say that this had turned out differently, and I run for this seat. I'm running for this seat knowing I'm not running for a position that's, indefinite. I'm running for a term.
Right.
And a term has a specific limit. And so when you're in office, I expect the party chair to be your biggest supporter. I expect the party chair to do everything possible to make you successful. But when that clock ticks and you are now a candidate again,
yes,
I'm thinking the party is going to do whatever's possible, including the party chair, to develop the deepest, strongest, most potent political bench possible with as many stellar candidates as possible that are going to represent the party as well as possible, and make sure that when we go into the general, we are in the most formidable position possible with a diverse set of candidates, especially in the Democratic Party, because you can't get no more Big Tent than this.
Right.
So I was really shocked to hear, we have an incumbent and that's who we support. But that's what I was told. And then I was even more shocked to be told, and the incumbent, even if I wasn't the party chair, I wouldn't help you because the incumbent's my friend.
So when he told you that, even if he wasn't the incumbent,
even if he wasn't the chair,
he's telling you, he basically told you, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, I'm gonna vote for him because that's my friend. But with the position that he's in, I don't feel like he should have even said that. You could have thought it all day long, but the fact that you're saying this out loud, that kind of gives me more pause to the whole situation.
Well, in retrospect, hey, listen, he was honest.
Yeah.
He was honest. You gotta give him that. He was honest with me. And so, again, that was so far outside the scope of what I thought the party chair's role was. Because, again, I'm thinking, listen, we are in the fight for our lives at every level of government.
Yes.
And the federal government doesn't prevail if it doesn't have the support of the states. The state government doesn't prevail if it doesn't have the local governments, the municipals, the county level governments. The county level governments, of course, are incorporated by our districts and precincts. And so I just was thinking, obviously, I'm going to talk to the chair. I'm going to be respectful. You don't just wake up and decide you want to run and not give people the courtesy of, here's who I am, here's my platform, here's what I would like to do. And so he was never rude to me. He was, rude to me overtly.
Yeah. It was more matter of fact, sounds like.
Yeah, it was very matter of fact, very honest. For a while, we would go places, he wouldn't even take a picture with me. He would say, I don't do that. And then I don't know what shifted or what changed. And
I know it shifted, but I'm going to be quiet.
Please.
Mind the business that pays.
But, he didn't, it was just very divergent from what I thought the party chair should do. And so that's why I'm saying this is not about an individual.
Mm-hmm.
This is about, are we, as voters, are we getting what we expect in our party chair, or the leader of our party from a county level? And is what we expect consistent with what's needed at the moment? It makes sense to me that as a party chair, you are developing the deepest possible political bench so that you are ready and able to offer the candidates that, really can drive the kind of passion and the kind of investment that we need, the voter energy that we need. Because we see what happens when people come out to vote, when they get engaged, when they are excited about an election, people stand in line.
I did.
People stand in line.
2008.
Right.
2012.
When you get, and so that happens when you get enough candidates. I get that there is a process, there is a time when everyone has to coalesce under one person, and we all have to propel our resources towards that individual. We have to galvanize all of our collective conduits and all our collective collateral and ensure that that person represents us and represents us well. But that's why we have a primary before that to determine who that person should be. And at that point, we should have as much diversification as possible so that voters have access to, okay, the person that we got my person had a chance
Right.
to at least participate in the process. They were not successful. We didn't have enough people that believed like we did, and so this is the individual that we're gonna support. And so I respect that, but that doesn't work if you are limiting who has access to the ballot. And that's ultimately where I kind of get to is voter suppression is a problem, but voter suppression also includes when you have parties kind of determining, when you have selections and coordinations by the party as opposed to elections and choice by the voter.
Right.
And so we really need to look at how we're making decisions. Okay, for example, we're as I said, either going into voting season, depending on when you see this, or in voting season. And one of the things that concern me is here we are going into a primary ballot here in Dallas County. When you look at your ballot, especially for your judicial candidates,
so many unopposed.
Why is that? And listen, let me be abundantly clear. This is not me saying don't vote, because I will be there on the first day of early voting.
Yes.
Making sure that I vote.
I'm right.
You will not. It's important. It is imperative for a number of reasons. But, you said it earlier, this is why people just check out. They don't want to be involved in politics. No, you got to be in it so you can say something about it. Yeah. So one of the things that this process taught me is how easy it is for people to just kind of look up and say, okay, Jalicia Pillow, listen to Soto, okay, great. Look her up and see all the elections she's voted in. Because at one point, when it started to get down to certain times, I was going after what we call super voters. These are people that have voted in the last 2-3 elections.
They voted. Railroads didn't even know it wasn't even a whole real. It was just 2 things on the ballot. It's like, why are we here? But I voted. Because I had to vote.
But then that makes
I'm a super voter.
Right. That makes you someone that when we look you up, when you write when they say call your congressperson, and you get that voicemail when they say, hey, Maxine, I lived it. I was literally running for a little judicial seat in Dallas County. But let's say I got 2 phone calls. One is from someone who the last time they voted was Obama's first term, before Obama wore a tan suit. And the other person, when I looked their name up, they have voted in every election, since in the 21st century.
Right.
Guess who I'm calling back first? Right? Because that person is someone who's invested and involved in the political process. So yes, you still vote. You still show up to the polls. You do the work. You do the civic work. You do the civic work. You make the civic investment in knowing who's on the ballot. But it also, and this is where I am, this is squarely where I am, I am now asking those questions. My background before I was an employment lawyer was in HR. And I did executive recruiting. And at any given point, if we had an executive position that needed to be filled, and leadership said, hey, we need you to fill, get candidates for this position. If I only brought them one candidate to interview, I wouldn't have a job.
Right.
You no longer have a job. You are not, because part of your job is to bring us superior candidates and allow us to interview and make a determination on who we think would be best to represent our organization. Likewise, as voters, when you vote, you are hiring someone to do a particular job. And so when I'm looking at the primary, which is when we're supposed to be interviewing, when we're supposed to be deciding who we're going to hire to represent us in the general election, and you have people just down the ballot, over 65% of our judicial candidates here in Dallas County in this election cycle are running unopposed. It is one thing if no one decided to run in your election, which is its own question, because who are we developing?
Right.
What are we doing?
But it's a whole other when there have been people that were going to run. They thrown their how they say that I throw my name in the hat.
Right, the hat in the ring.
Yeah, the hat in the ring, and you're still wondering how you come out and it's still. This is not like a boxing fight. It's not the I'm still standing, or it's. I don't know.
But again,
it's just begging the question.
Why are we not developing benches? Because listen, competition, a competitive process, is advantageous to all of us, right? It doesn't necessarily mean there are people running unopposed now that, quite frankly, I would have voted for it anyway.
Right.
So it's not saying anything bad about them because they're running unopposed. What I'm asking is a larger macro question. Mm-hmm. I'm asking a systems question. As a party, are we doing everything we can to develop the deepest, most talented political bench so that we are not just, having the same people stay in the same roles indefinitely, where they're getting endowments as opposed to elections. Mm-hmm. But are we ensuring that we're bringing people into the fold, that we're recruiting people to be part of the process, that we're having diversification of thought and ideology? And I don't know if that's necessarily happening. And if it's not, if it's happening and the result is we're not getting candidates, then we need to ask different questions. Right. But there still needs to be an interrogation of that process.
I just feel like when you are, in lack of a better word, challenged, when you have a healthy competition, I feel like it brings out a better authentic self. For me, I don't shy from competition because, one, I have every confidence in myself. Mm-hmm. And if I fall short, I fall short. And I figure out, okay, then I will do this differently, or I will add this to whatever I was doing that was working. Let me pour a little more into this cup that I maybe didn't have, but to just not,
right? To stifle that process,
because when you sit back, and we've all done it. If let's say you're going out for the basketball team, and I've got to go up against someone who I know does not play or has not played, I'm not coming full throttle because in my mind, I'm Michael Jordan. Hey, and you on the Doom Squad. I'm coming out like tongue out. I'm slim. I'm doing all that. But when I come up and I got a little bit of competition, I'm going to let me get my A game. Let me sit back and let me focus.
And in this context, who is advantaged when the incumbent is saying, "Let me bring my A game"? Yeah. The only party that is advantaged to the highest degree in that scenario is the voter, is the residents, it's the citizens. Yeah. Right. We just last night I went to Monday Night Politics, and here's the challenge. Monday Night Politics, if you're not aware, is an event that's held at the African American Museum on a series of consecutive Monday nights that's hosted by the Dallas Examiner. Well, at this event, you have candidates who are being asked questions both by a host as well as from the audience, and they're both given an opportunity to answer. But here's the thing. If you're running unopposed, they don't really put you up. Right. And because why? Right. So if a person doesn't have to compete, they don't have to diversify themselves as a candidate, they don't have to essentially convince voters because there's only one name on the ballot. They essentially are coasting until the general, and depending on where they are in their county, they might say, well, listen, I got a pretty good chance, of winning because my political party is in favor in this county. Right. Which means once you, do everything possible, you pretty much don't have to bring your A game at any point. The other thing that I'll say that's really concerning is once it's decided that an individual is removed from the ballot, or even before that, the reason why it's so important for the party to do the work of that form, content, and procedure review is, in the absence of that, the only way a person gets removed from the ballot is if there's a challenge, which creates an environment in which you're in this kind of carnivorous, backbiting, harming each other intra-party, internal to the party, where I'm not going to advantage you in any way.
Because I'm still being harmed as the voter, because at this point, it's so much backbiting and stabbing. It's, who knows, let me decide. I feel like at that point, with the way things have gone, I feel like they decided my vote for me.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of a democracy. That's the opposite of me having my voice heard, because now when I go to the ballot, regardless of what I say, this is who's gonna, come out. When I was in high school, I remember, and so this is how I know how that opinion is, and thank God for maturity. I went and I ran for student house president. Well, there were 3 other people on the ballot. A teacher pulled me to the side and asked me would I run. I had no intentions of running. I said, okay, this is the day before the election. It's a small school, so I go up and the other candidates say, oh, Jill's running. I might as well hang it up. And they dropped out the day of the voting, the day that we were supposed to do our speeches. And I literally got up there and said, well, it don't matter what I say. And I said it just like that. It don't matter what I say. I'm the only candidate. Now, again, I didn't mean it that I wouldn't work for them, but how would you feel of a candidate right now today? Because essentially, to me, that's what they're saying. I don't care what you think. If I can come up here and say FIFA for thumb, and I'm still going to get it. So the thing is, vote, as she said, party chair, that's an elected position. I didn't know that. I learned that today, and I hope you guys did too. But we say vote in your local elections down to the minor positions.
Let me say this. There is no minor election. There is no minor election. There's no minor office. It is minor to the extent that, irrelevant to, maybe a federal. Yeah. But listen, when it's your life, it's very
everything. And I feel like,
I was running for the lowest judicial role in the judicial hierarchy.
But it's very significant.
If you're the person with the $5,000 debt that's being sued by Capital One, who sits in that seat
is very important.
Major.
If I'm about to be evicted,
very major. There are no minor roles. There are no minor offices.
There is no consistency, and I heard it, but I get to see it, and it's very frustrating. It's very angering for me.
Well, listen, what I told people and what I continue to tell people is be angry at that which is divergent from what we should have, but love us enough to stay involved and invested.
Be angry, but put in action.
Right.
Yeah.
And use that anger. Like, so am I angry? Listen. Right? But I can't be angry and say, okay, well, I'm so angry now I'm going to walk away.
That was my next question.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
So it's safe to say we will see you again.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
I can't, because
after seeing what you're seeing?
Yeah. Once you see this, once you recognize, and see, another thing was, I'm just going to be honest, I was hesitant to say something because the challenges that I experienced were by the Democratic Party, by a bunch of Black folk. And I'm not one to be out here yelling and screaming about a bunch of one Black folks and 2 Democrats. You don't shoot your own. But my higher rule is I have a love for my people.
Right.
My party, my people, people in my circle. And so anyone or anything that does harm to them becomes problematic for me.
Yeah.
And that includes people in that party.
Right.
That includes people that look like me. That was the first thing. And then the more that this happened, here was the other thing that happened. So there were people that were calling me and saying, okay, there must be some more to this story, because I know that it's not over no dang on 4. But then there were other people calling me outside of the party.
Yeah.
Who were like, well, one, you want to come run with us?
Right. It really was.
Yeah, you were there. People from outside of the party who were like, "Well, we've been watching you, and you're kind of good."
Right. I didn't know that. When you speak.
Right. But the other thing was, I also started talking to people this was happening to in the Republican Party. And so what I'm realizing is this is not an issue, right? This is not personal to Maxine. This is not an individual issue in one race with one party chair. That's why I'm saying my anger is not directed towards him as a person. I just think he was rude and unprofessional. Right? But he couldn't do what he did if there wasn't a system that supported him.
Exactly.
Right? So we must be demanding of leaders who believe that there is more required of them than the minimum of the Texas election code.
And that speaks volumes. And I'm so glad to hear that this is not the end. This is the beginning. It was a conversation you and I spoke on when you said, God, this is not it. I said, but the race is not given to the swift. It's given to he that endure. And just because it didn't happen right now doesn't mean it's not happening. All of the wheels are turning for a reason. I saw a lot of things that I probably normally wouldn't see. I know we went to one event and I think my mouth was on the floor because I saw people and I talked to people when I was getting signatures at one of the events and it's like, I'll sign your petition, but I can't be seen signing your petition.
Right.
I can't. And I was like, what?
Right.
You really play that stuff on?
I was getting the signatures, but she's the wrangler.
Yeah.
She would be like, hey, you need to go talk to this candidate.
As I handed out the juice.
And we made green juice for people. Our campaign colors.
Yes,
but that happened quite often.
That was like a mind-blowing thing because...
So she heard it. People
I was like, wait, what did you say?
I can't sign your signature because that's public, but when we get to the voting booths, I'm going to vote for you because I think you'll make the better judge. But I can't go against the party.
Yeah.
I can't go against the incumbent.
And it was like, I can't speak
how will that be perceived? They're in power. I don't know. And so it requires us to be engaged, involved, and brave, courageous enough. Because at one point I actually posted, hey, am I trying to get into the local judiciary or the mob?
Yeah, it was bad. I literally said, like, dang, I guess if y'all go check my credit score, I might disqualify myself. I don't know. I was like, do I really want this? And it's one of those where you sit back and you're like, do I really want y'all in my life? I'm just a treasurer. But at the same time, I could not shrink and shy away because I was like, we need consistency, we need fairness. And I feel like when you get to any politics, I don't care what party you're in, especially in today's political climate, we need candidates like you who are upfront and honest, who you're not afraid to say, I'm not quite sure, but I'll find out. Give me 24, 48 hours. I feel like someone like you on any bench, I feel like you would be that person that if I walked up in front of you as a judge and I saw you talk, I feel like you would be fair. I don't think you would say, oh, I'm going to give her another chance. I think you would look at the law and you would interpret it in a way that the way it should be. As fair as you can be. In that, it's not gonna always be,
And this is so funny. You know what? I appreciate that. I really do, and that's part of the reason that I was running. But again, I want to make it clear: this is so much bigger than me. This is so much bigger than this particular role. As I said, I'm looking now at a system. I'm looking at a larger issue because this is not just happening to Maxine. Mm-hmm. I'm not the only person that this election is happening to. As a matter of fact, I'm not the only person. I'm not the only person who's on the ballot right now who has petitions that have deficiencies, right? But it's about who's willing to challenge and whether or not the party chairs can see that as an issue. And so it's important for us to stay engaged, involved, and be courageous.
I thank you for taking the time out because, again, you've had to talk me off the ledge. I'm pretty sure you've had similar conversations. I'm just a loose cannon. That's what my husband says. But in all fairness, it's just right is right and wrong is wrong. Hopefully we can continue. I would like to continue having conversations to bring awareness. Because there's so many people out there, we're not even on the novice level. We just don't know. Right. We haven't even come to the surface to understand that there's so much more out there. So hopefully you'll be able to take the time. We can do this again and talk to you guys and let you guys know what's going on, not just legally, but in our local levels, because it is so important. The time is now. When you know better, you do better. And so thank you, Attorney Maxine, for your time, and hopefully you will grace me again.
Thank you.
All right, guys, in those comments, let us know what you want to see, hear, think. We look forward to listening to you. Thanks.